with us. What's your reaction to what Aaron Rodgers said just this morning?
Look, I think he realizes, Shay, that expectations are sky high because of him, because of the precedent that was set by Tom Brady when he went to Tampa Bay in a similar type of situation, right, where you need a franchise quarterback to kind of elevate everyone else on the offense in particular first, because you already have a defense that you feel as though is championship caliber second. With Aaron, 39 years old, going to be 40 in December, they had to trade for him. So now you're talking about a guy who they give up, they swap first, they give up a second, they give up a fifth, they give up a conditional second next year that can turn to a first if he plays 65% of the snaps. Look, if Aaron Rodgers can walk, he's going to play 65% of the snaps, period. If he's alive, he'll play 65% of the snaps. So now you're talking about significant draft compensation that you've given up. Okay, on top of that, he has his offensive coordinator. He's going to run his offense. He brings in two guys who know his offense on the perimeter in Randall Cobb and Allen Lazard, who can help out this great group of perimeter players that they have. So there's a lot of things that are moving towards this football team being able to make significant noise in the AFC and in the NFL. So much so to the point where I do say it's Super Bowl or bust, because you know what? One of the things Aaron said right there was this. He goes, look, I've made some changes to my diet. I've made some changes, to the way I train. I think it would be doing this team a disservice if I were just to play 1 year, given what the expectations are. He understands what it is. He understands what's being expected of him. Now, he also did say, now talk to me in 3-4 months, and maybe I'll give you a different, maybe I'll give you a different soundbite here is really what he's alluding to. And look, and so he gets it. He gets that really right now, they need to hit the ground running. They need to hit the ground running fast. And a lot of that's going to depend on him. A lot of that's going to also, in terms of how he feels, is going to depend on this offensive line, which we have talked about, or I've talked about extensively, I know personally, on these airwaves, about how that is the critical factor towards the New York Jets either having the highest of highs or the lowest of lows this year. If it is good, if this offensive line is good, there is no telling what the Jets can do this year. There is no reason why they couldn't potentially wind up winning the AFC East and challenging for AFC supremacy if the offensive line is good. And he has that effect on the rest of the roster like Tom Brady had in Tampa Bay. So I think all in all, what he is saying is this. I get it. I may be telling you and telling people internally we need to just temper expectations, but I get it. I get what's expected of me. And right now, all eyes are going to be on me all year, as they should be.
So, okay, Lewis is essentially saying the X factor, though, here could be the offensive line. But nonetheless, yesterday after practice, Garrett Wilson was another guy that went out and basically said, we're talking about Super Bowl here. I don't care if that's what we shouldn't be talking about. That's what we're throwing around in this building. And I'm obviously paraphrasing, but Lewis said it there. It does feel like Super Bowl or bust for the Jets. Do you agree with that sentiment, Mike T?
I don't. I think it's about credibility. Look, it's been a while since the Jets have been on this sort of stage with these sort of expectations. Candidly, it reminds me a lot of 2008 when we traded for Brett Favre. He brought us to a whole nother level. We had a good year. He got hurt, and obviously the rest is history. But what Aaron Rodgers has already done, guys, is he's created this aura of association. We've seen it with Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb. And what we saw with Tom Brady when he went down to Tampa Bay, everyone wanted to be there. So to me, if they won a playoff game, if they won the division, if they made some noise in the playoffs, and all of a sudden everybody wants to be with the New York Jets in 2024, that to me is a successful transition to becoming a Jet.
But I'm glad you brought up, Mike T, Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because I think since we've seen that and we've seen someone have that success in their first year, right? We talk about Aaron Rodgers in the light of he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's a guy who's won 4 MVPs. He's been a Super Bowl champion. I was a victim to that in 2010. When we had the #1 seed in Atlanta, he came through there and beat the hell out of us, right? But when you go get, if you're the New York Jets organization, a guy like Aaron Rodgers, a guy of that caliber, you're saying, okay, now we have a guy that can go get things done. Now we have a guy that can go toe-to-toe with these young guns in the AFC when you look at that landscape of quarterbacks and you also look at the teams. That's what Aaron Rodgers gives you. You look at this New York Jets and how it's constructed. They had a top 5 defense a year ago. They also have youth on their side. So Aaron Rodgers being there, his influence, and how not just the offensive side of the ball, but how he influences the defense, right? Because I know there was numerous of occasions last year where that defense would go out and ball out, but the offense stuck up the place. The quarterback position was a deficiency. Yeah. So now you have a defense that believes that they have a guy that can go get it done. And when you go get that guy and you trade what you traded to the Green Bay Packers, you're saying, okay, we're one quarterback away. And that's all we've heard from the New York Jets organization and also people around last season. We're one quarterback away. So if you're one quarterback away and you go get that guy, I expect the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think this is, Mike, I disagree with you, man, in this regard. This is more than just about bringing a sense or an air of credibility to this organization. You're talking about an organization that just 2 years ago drafted a quarterback number 2 overall. Now you went up and you wound up acquiring and gave up what is going to amount to a first-round pick and a second-round pick and swapped first-round picks for a guy who's a 4-time MVP. 4-time MVP, and there is precedent in terms of guys with that kind of resume taking an organization that's kind of set up like this, that has some good perimeter weaponry, championship top 10, top 5 caliber defense, and you are in taking that team to the highest of highs, meaning making it to the Super Bowl and ultimately winning it. I mean, this is Aaron Rodgers we're talking about, a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. And look, he can change his diet all he wants. Look, maybe he is going to play until he's 45, 44, 43. I don't know. But I would say this: if I was ownership in New York, or if I was Joe Douglas in New York, or if I was anyone of significant influence in terms of how this team is constructed and what the expectations should be, I'm saying, look, we got to put the pedal to the metal now. I really don't know how he is going to feel next year. And quite honestly, if we can get this, I don't know how many ways to say it. If we can get this offensive line straight, if we can get it to the point where, as an offense, we are at least a top 15 rushing team in terms of average yards gained rushing the football, average yards gained on first down rushing the football, negative plays, if we can reduce them where they were in the bottom quarter in the league in negative rushing plays last year, especially considering the stable of backs that they have. I mean, it's ridiculous, the stable of backs that they have. If we can get this offensive line going, our expectations should be to win the East and challenge for supremacy in the AFC.
Is this a big deal?
It is. I consulted with my social media experts, my 2 teenagers, and they said in 2023, it's a big deal. And in all seriousness, though, I would say this, guys. What would keep me up at night if I'm the New York Giants is not a holdout, but a hold-in. Saquon Barkley's going to make $555,000 the day he signs that contract. And if I'm Joe Shane and the New York Giants, what worries me is this. I come in right before that Dallas game, I sign the contract, and guess what? I'm not ready to go. So you had leverage on me in July, and you exerted it. Guess what? I'm going to exert my leverage. I'll let you know when my soft tissues are ready to go, but I'm not ready this week.
Yeah, man. Look, I agree with you, Mike. And I have teenagers too. I haven't consulted them, but I think when you remove this, a guy like Saquon, when he tries to kind of disassociate himself on social media, albeit with his football team that drafted him, and really said that, look, this is a gold jacket type of player, and they built him up to be what he is now, and he worked his rear end off to be what he is now and come back from the injuries that he's come back. He feels disrespected right now. And knowing him like I do, and I have talked to Saquon a couple different times and spent some time with him a couple different times, he is an A-plus individual that really does feel indebted to the organization, indebted to his teammates, will do everything he can to be the best possible player he can be at, quite honestly, physically, the hardest position to play in terms of your ability to recover week after week. And we all know this because we've been talking about it ad nauseum now concerning running backs and the punishment they take. He right now is sitting there going, are you kidding me? We know, look, I understand that, every hit that I take, my value decreases, but this is how it is. And I don't know the particulars of what he's been asking for and what they've been offering, but clearly he feels disrespected. And for him to sit here and go, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go now and I'm going to go with the nuclear option. I'm just going to totally back off and distance myself from you guys. This will be over a lot later than sooner. This is something that's going to drag on for a lot longer, I believe, than people expected it to maybe initially. And that's something that, look, if Saquon Barkley's doing it, given the type of guy who I believe he is, then you better believe it. You better believe he's ticked off. You better believe this is for real. And that's unfortunate because, look, we've talked about how running backs and how they're being valued right now and what goes into that kind of business decision. And I get that side of it too, man. I really do. I get what general managers fear. And Mike, I know you understand this. But, man, for Saquon to do this, I think that is definitely something that is going to catch Joe Shane's attention and catch Brian Daboll's attention and catch John Mayer's attention too.
So what we're all saying, this is how the youngsters communicate in 2023.
Correct.
This is the way they send messages. And I'll say this. I had the luxury yesterday on ESPN radio to have Chris Johnson come on and talk about a lot of different things, but he was a guy who held out in 2011, right? Chris Johnson was a first-round draft pick to the Tennessee Titans and talked about his time and when he did so. And also, it was a different time because he was able to hold out and show up right before training camp, but ended up getting his money. But I asked him, I was like, Chris, how long did it take you to get back in, game shape to your normal self? And he literally told me it took him about 6 games, and he didn't have the year he wanted to have. But on the back end, he had to sacrifice. Sometimes you got to cut off your finger to save your hand. He sacrificed that to be able to get the money he felt like he deserved. But he told me it literally took him about 6 games for him to get back to his normal self, to where he's reading the blocks correctly from his offensive lineman. So whatever decision Saquon Barkley makes, he just has to be able to live with himself and look in the mirror and say, that's the decision I made and I'm good with it.
Harry, I think you make a great point, which is, again, I'm hard-pressed to think that he's going to miss a paycheck when it's $500,000 a week, but I'm also hard-pressed to think that he's going to be 100% ready to go. So Giants may have won the battle the other day and not give him the long-term deal, but in a big year for them where they're coming off a successful season, starting against the Dallas Cowboys, it's hard to believe, to your point, Harry, that he'll be 100%.
He has no other option than just to say what he alluded to, a week ago or 2 weeks ago when he was talking on that podcast, which is, the only thing I can do to prove my worth to you at this point is to withhold my services and let you see just how valuable I am to this team. What else can he do? Look, I understand Mike's point too. Look, I wouldn't want to give up $500,000 a week either now. That's a lot of cash. I don't know where Saquon's mind is at or what his financial situation is and whether or not he feels as though giving up that kind of money on a weekly basis is something that he feels is necessary in order for him to get what he wants, and how much he is, committed to trying to get an above market or top of the market, at market type of contract. I don't know what his mindset is in that way. But for him to go ahead and say, hey, look, I don't think for him it was just some emotional reaction where he just said, you know what, I'm just going to scrub this from the New York Giants just for today and it'll be back up tomorrow. I'll put it back. He doesn't strike me as that kind of this emotional, visceral guy who just does that kind of thing on a whim. Now, this is someone who, look, he's one of the most even-keeled, really thoughtful individuals that I've met coming out of college into the pros, the time that I spent around him, real soft. He just gets it. I just get good feelings about where his head is at and how he looks at his career and how committed he is to his career. So for him to do something like this, I wouldn't be comfortable with it. I'd be sitting there thinking, well, maybe he is. Maybe he is going to go ahead and exert the nuclear option on us and employ the nuclear option and try and start missing some games and seeing whether or not we can get by without him. I don't know.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.